No, I mean, everybody's making, especially the vintage guys, they're all making a big thing of the garage stanky 250 race the other night. Because the kid's on a 125 and he's racing against 4-strokes. Now, at first, I was excited. I was excited to see the kid race the 125 2-stroke in the 250 class. But at the end of the night, I thought to myself, well, you finished kind of toward the back of the pack. Why are we all jumping up and down? I'll tell you why we're all jumping up and down, and I kind of forgot about this too. Think about how many guys go to qualify for that race. Not just not only the first 250 heat or the second 250 heat where there's 20 or 22 guys. Then you have the last chance qualifier, and he had to ride that in order to qualify. Think about how many guys are sitting out in the parking lot that don't qualify for the night program that he beat. So it's not only a matter of the kid was on a 125 in the 254 stroke class, but, you know, it was an incredible feat. I got to start the show. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Let's get down to the starting line, and I'll tell you more about what's coming up on the show. The big news, the sad news today, or recently, Sunday actually, out of Texas, was the fact that the legendary Preston Petty had passed on. Preston Petty was born in 1941 in Los Angeles, California. His father was an extremely successful lawyer who tried to keep Preston away from motorcycles all he could. But Preston was determined to be on a motorcycle, and by the age of 13, he had a Colt. Shortly after that, he began to race. Preston's enthusiasm toward motorcycles just carried him further and further on, but he also had a brilliant mind when it came to computers. At some point during his computer work, he was riding a bike, a fender broke. He decided that he wanted to have a plastic fender made. It was his computer programming that really blessed us all in the 1970s when Preston invented the plastic fender. He was a pilot. He was an inventor. He was so much more. But more than ever, Preston Petty, at 80 years old, is gone, and he will certainly be missed. And as the saying goes, at Preston Petty Products, the legend continues. And the next time, try this segment tonight. We've got a couple of different things going on for you. I'm looking forward to bringing you that in the Moto Showcase. We've got a 1974 Husqvarna 250 mag. And here's the problem. We're going to be talking about rusty pipes and a few other things. The What's It Worth segment, a 74 YZ250. You'll be able to guess how much I think that bike recently sold for. We've got a garage tour. We'll be back with our friend Bill Wheeler. We've got all that and a whole lot more coming up on Vintage Motocross Q&A. I'm Joe Abadi, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Thank you for joining me tonight. As always, I have to thank Jordan, Chelsea, and Susie for helping me put the show together. Thank you, the viewers at home who are joining us tonight. Don't forget to keep sharing the show, whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube. It's very important that you tell your friends about Vintage Motocross Q&A and that you share it as well. As always, we will have a random share giveaway winner announced on the page on Thursday. So keep sharing the show, and we're going to be giving away a beautiful sticker sheet just like this, compliments of vintco.com. To find out who the winner is, join us on the page on Thursday. Keep sharing the show. Comment Motion Pro if you're on YouTube. And don't forget, keep telling your friends about it. How do the pros watch the show? How are the experts watching it? They're sitting back watching it on their big screen TV. Big screen TV, 52 inches. They go down to Best Buy. They've got their stimulus money. They buy a new big TV. They sit home like gangsters watching the show, commenting on their telephone. You can do it the same way. So get down there on your big screen TV. Don't forget to keep sharing the show. And we'll all have a real great time. As always, I want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank Motion Pro, Vinco, Preston Petty Products, Racer X, Full Circle Racing, Northwest Mako CZ, Bill's Pipes, and Sunrise Vapor Blasting. The next time, Try This segment is brought to you by Vintco. Keep the ride going. Tonight, I want to talk to you about how to make a front brake cable guide. It's just a simple solution, And I'm going to show you how to do it. It's going to look like this when you're done. It's going to be really great how the cable stays aligned in your bike. Here's what you're going to need. You're going to need a spoke, just like this. Now, I would recommend you use a bicycle spoke. I'm using motorcycle spokes for this demonstration. They're a little on the thick side. A bicycle spoke would be better. Where you're going to begin is you're going to cut off the threaded end, and you're going to mark it 5 inches up, and you're going to cut off this end too. What you're going to have after you do that is a rod that looks just like this. Previously your spoke. It's going to look just like this though. The next thing you want to do is bend that into a horseshoe shape like this. There's a couple of ways to do that. You could put it around any object that's on your vise, maybe the handle, or you could take a bolt like this, attach it to your vise, clamp it down, and put it in there and bend it around it. The purpose of that is because you want a nice radius to go around there, so when your cable goes through there, you don't want it to pinch. The next thing you're going to do is put this piece in the vise, and I'm going to show you how to bend that. You want to have a couple of nice sharp edges on the top of the vise. You can do that with a soft jaw, or you can do what I did here and just cut 2 pieces of angle aluminum where the edges are nice and sharp. The important thing is that you keep it in there nice and straight. Clamp down on your vise gently with a hammer. You're going to tap down just like that. Take it out of the vise. And then you got the shape I showed you that was on the fork. Now you can cut these a little bit shorter to whatever dimension you like, depending on the clamp you have, or maybe you want them a little bit longer. Don't forget, you might want to file the ends. They might be a little sharp after you cut them. Well, that's our tip this week on the Next Time Try This segment. You could connect it right to your lower fork leg like that. Use a nice thin clamp. Don't use a hose clamp. It'll turn out looking like a plumbing project when you're done. Then, in the end, you have a cable guide just like that. Going to hold your cable in place, keep it out of your spokes, and protect the casing and everything else that goes along with that cable. Tonight's special from Vinco. The air shocks are out there. People are talking about it. They're $795.95. They come in all popular sizes from 13.5 inch up to 17.5 inch. They are assembled in the USA. These are exact replicas of that famous air shock that was popular in the 70s. In fact, all the parts are interchangeable. Absolutely beautiful. They come assembled. All you have to do is add air or nitrogen. Get a hold of them at vinco.com. Boy, we're reaching people all over the world. We've got a moto showcase tonight that was sent in to us from David Alsop, who comes to us from Drysdale, Victoria, Australia. He's got a really, really nice bike here. It's a 1974 Husqvarna 250 mag. Jordan's going to go through the slides while I tell you a little bit more about the bike. Hello, Joe. I got the restorer, Michael Hughes, to document what has been done to this 1974 Husky 250 mag that I purchased from the previous owner, Peter Whalen. In 1974, at the age of 18 years old, my friend and I drove to a suburb in Springvale, Melbourne, to buy 2 bikes off Athol Pedersen Husqvarna motorcycles. I bought the 74 Husqvarna 250 mag, and my friend bought a 74 KTM MC 250. We both raced our bikes in that year, 1974, having a great time. I'm now 65 years old. I never thought I'd ever own a 74 mag again at my age. The opportunity came my way last week, and I jumped at it. I'm so excited that we're going to talk about my bike on the show, and that my Husqvarna 250 mag will be honored on your show. It means so much to me. David Alsop, I want to thank you for sending in that beautiful Husqvarna 250 mag. It's a great story. I love how people are reliving their childhood with going back and getting these bikes. And for sending in the bike to us, we are going to get you a cup just like this, Vintage Motocross Q&A, and compliments of Preston Petty products. So, David Alsop, I think you say good day. So good day to you and your 250 Husky mag. Thanks for sending it to us here on the show. And this week, Preston Petty Products, they have a special. They have 2 mutters, 2 mutter fenders in any color that you like, and they got the GP grips too. So 2 fenders and the GP grips, just $115.95 this week at Preston Petty Products, and they're looking for dealers yet, so get a hold of Paul Stennard. In fact, I'll be seeing Paul Stennard on Saturday at the York Swap Meet. I'll be reminding him that we're doing all we can here on the show, but don't forget, if you want to become a dealer for Preston Petty Products, get a hold of Paul Stennard, and he's going to hook you up. Thanks, Paul. All right, and here's the problem segment tonight, which is one of my favorite segments of the show. We've got some questions that were sent in from a few viewers. Let's get to the first one and see what the question is. It's from Andrew Gelhaus. Hope I'm saying that correctly. Do you think there would be a market out there if manufacturers began to reproduce the classic bikes of the 70s, like the RMs, the YZs, the CR125s, and bikes such as the XR75? I'm not so sure that would go over with the modern market. I mean, it might, but other than Triumph, who did come out with a Bonneville that had classic lines like the old Bonnevilles had from the late 60s and 70s, I'm not so sure the motocross market is really going to embrace that. I think you've got a lot of guys out there, younger guys who are into that four-stroke scene and into racing and into off-road. I'm not sure if guys, let's say our age, between the ages of 50 and 70, are going to go out and buy a new Honda CR125. Also, believe it or not, I think the tooling and the cost of making one of those bikes would be astronomical. So I wouldn't be under the impression that, well, we're going to be able to go out and buy a CR125 or a YZ like we did in 74 or 75, and that it would be, well, cost effective. It's probably going to be damn near the cost of a modern bike. And I just don't think the market is there for that type of thing. I think when the nostalgia bug hits us, much like it did with our Moto Showcase bike tonight with David Alsop from Australia, I think when that nostalgia bug hits us, we want the real McCoy. We really don't want a replica. So I don't think it would really go over that well. And you also mentioned something about would it increase our parts supply? I guess it could. I don't know. Would they put the same transmission in a 2022 CR125 that they're building now? Is it going to be the same gearing, the same? I don't know. I don't think there's that kind of a market for it, but I think it was an interesting question and a good topic. Thank you for sending us that question, Andrew. Let's go on to the next one. How can we protect ourselves? This is from Clinton Schreiber, and it's a really good question too. How can we protect ourselves from online scammers claiming to have parts that they don't really have? Well, that is a big problem these days, and you see pictures or announcements on it all over Facebook and other places. One of the best things you can do is go old school on them. Guy's got a part for sale. Tell him you want his phone number. Tell him you want his phone number, that you want to speak to him. Get his phone number, send him your number, and get the guy on the phone. If something doesn't sound quite right, it probably isn't. Another way to protect yourself is use a credit card or PayPal. Use something that has some kind of buyer protection program on it, okay? Another thing you can do, look on eBay and look at other places on social media to see if this guy has a presence. eBay is a great way to do it. If they're not on eBay, well, then you got to go back to the Facebook, to the Instagram, maybe a couple of other places, see if the guy's real. Look at his page. See if you have any mutual friends. See if they've done business with him, okay? And that's really one of the only ways you can protect yourself. But those, I think, are three pretty good ones. Thanks for the question. Next guy up is Nick Momola Sr. Love this guy, out of North Jersey. Nick Momola Sr., big hot rod guy too. Joe, have you ever heard of using toilet bowl cleaner like Lysol for getting rust off of exhaust pipes? Let me tell you something, Nick. That really is old school, and I have heard of it. It does work. The only problem I have with it is there are so many other products these days that take rust off pipes and all different parts, whether it's a vapor rust or navel jelly and so many other things, that I don't really see the need to go back there and use that old experiment, Lysol, that actually did work and worked very, very well. In fact, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, Nick, I saw someone who's very knowledgeable with vintage motorcycles post something about that Lysol thing not too long ago, in the last month or so. I don't know if it was Harry Clem or it might have been J.P. Morgan. It was somebody who's really knowledgeable with restorations and mechanics of a bike. And they did mention Lysol, and they said after you get it done, you wipe it down with a coat of fresh oil, and it will protect it from rusting. Yes, it works. Yes, I've heard of it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because there are just so many other great products out there today. Nick Momola, thanks for the question.
I'm Brock Glover, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Jeff with Motion Pro, introducing you to the Masterlink Press Tool. Now, the Masterlink Press Tool is an innovative addition to our wide variety of chain tools here at Motion Pro, and what makes this tool so unique is that it both presses on and presses off Masterlink side plates. It's designed to be used with all 50 series clip-style links and performs the job very easily. The Masterlink press tool is constructed with a billet aluminum body and hardened steel pins for long-lasting durability. It's affordably priced at $28.99 and is available from your favorite dealers nationwide.
The What's It Worth segment tonight, we've got one of my favorite bikes. I own one, I've raced one, and it's a 1974 YZ250. This bike recently sold on eBay in Pennsylvania in the past month or so. This is, of course, the segment of the show where I encourage you, the viewers at home watching on your big screen TV, to put in what you think this bike recently sold for. I'm going to go through the description of it. Jordan's going to go through the slides, and we'll learn a little bit more. It's a 1974 Yamaha YZ250A. It's a vintage motocross survivor, according to the seller. It doesn't have a title. I selected salvage title because I had to put something in there. Mostly original, including the airbox, which you can't see, and that's a very difficult part to come by. It does have a matching engine and frame. It does start with 431. I have not opened up the engine, but it does start and it does run well. I can't comment about the condition of the bike internally, but what you could see from the outside is that it would be an excellent candidate and is solid. Really, really good for a restoration. The seller did put new Dunlop tires on it, an aftermarket expansion chamber. It has new grips, a kill button, new number plates, a new seat cover, new spark plug, and transmission oil. It's got aftermarket shocks and an O-ring chain. What do you think this bike recently sold for? $3,500? $55,000? $6,000? This bike sold in Pennsylvania the beginning of January for $5,000. I thought it was a good deal. A couple of things really stuck out to me at this bike. The frame looked unmolested. It didn't look welded. The clutch actuator was not broken on the engine. All the fins were on the cylinder. The rims looked nice and round. It had the silencer on there, or he claims to have some other parts with it. I thought it was a really, really sharp deal at $5,000. With a good restoration, this bike would probably be worth somewhere a little over $10,500, $11,000 with the right restoration. And it's got the airbox in there. Very, very difficult to come by. $5,000. How close did you get? Good job. And that's it for the What's It Worth segment. I think we're still rolling here. And yeah, Full Circle Racing. Tom McAllister. Still running a great little special. He will powder coat your hubs, make them satin black, gloss black. He'll do the backing plate for just $10 more. For $20 more, one-time fee, he'll make those hubs any color you want. Be sure to get a hold of Tom McAllister and Full Circle Racing, whether it's for your motocross or vintage or modern, off-road or on. Tom McAllister and Full Circle Racing, your one-stop shop for spokes and rims. Thanks, Tom. And we've got a little bit of a garage tour for you tonight. I was able to spend a few minutes with my friend Bill Wheeler down at his shop, Wheelhouse Garage, and we took a look at a Greaves. Let's see what Bill had to say about that. I'm Joe Abadi. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A.
And I'm Bill Wheeler. We're at Wheelhouse Garage, and that's a 1965 Greaves Challenger with that leading link front fork, which is kind of iconic. That and that cast aluminum front frame. Kind of screams Greaves.
Yes.
And so I'm really excited about that bike. It's got a 19-inch front. So that bike, I mean, in the mid-'60s was coming into desert racing where, these 360-plus pound pre-units were kind of getting set aside and people were starting to really take two-stroke seriously. So, just great history.
There is a lot of history here, and it's nice that a young man like yourself has taken the time to preserve these bikes. Well, that was that. I wish I had more time to spend with my friend Bill Wheeler, and I would have loved to talk more about that Greaves because it really brought back some really good memories of a Greaves that I restored several years ago. It's a very, very interesting bike, and if you get a moment, go online and try and learn a little bit more about a Greaves, how that big aluminum beam up front is actually cast into the steel frame. And I did a little experiment one day also with that Earl's front end. I took it off and I wanted to see what the weight difference would be between that and like a set of CR 250 forks from 1974. And I weighed everything, and believe it or not, they were about the same. Very, very interesting bike with the Albion transmission and the pre-unit assembly on that bike. Greaves, very, very interesting. I wish I had more time to talk to my buddy Bill Wheeler about that, but that's what I remember about the Greaves that I restored. Sunrise Vapor Blasting. I love this guy. Love him. Sunrise Vapor Blasting. one of the greatest things since sliced bread. I know everybody says that, but you want to get down to Modesto, get a hold of Mark Farriester, mail him your stuff, put it in a box, get it to Mark Farriester. His turnaround time is phenomenally quick. His prices are very, very reasonable, and whether it floats, flies, or rolls, there's something on there that needs to be cleaned via vapor blasting. Mark Farriester is the guy you want to see about that. Thank you, Mark Farriester, for all you do for us here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. We're going to take a commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to have some more show. We're not going to announce who the winner is on the random share giveaway. That's going to be on the page tomorrow. But we'll be right back with more Vintage Motocross Q&A.
Classic and vintage dirt bikes are more than a hobby. It's not just about the ride. It's about the work that goes in. The work that keeps you connected to the ride. It's about bringing the bike back to life and doing it with your own hands. It's about the adrenaline and adventure. And when it comes to putting all the pieces together, only Vinco knows the bikes and parts the way you do. Vinco, keep the ride going.
In the Just How I See It segment tonight, I want to hear from you. I really want to see some comments on what I'm about to talk about in the Just How I See It segment. Supercross season is underway. We've already had 2 weeks on TV. It's been a lot of fun. I thought it's been great. Now, a lot of people in social media, they've always got to complain about the announcer. There's always some kind of complaint about who's calling the show. I've even heard one person say, well, they shouldn't have foreigners. The guy's from Australia, Lee Diffie. I think he's a good announcer. He may not be a motocross guy, but I think he does a fairly good job. Now, when you had Ralph and Jeff Emig on there, a couple of you kind of turned on Ralph. I thought Ralph and Jeff Emig did an absolutely great job. Then you had Ricky on there with Ralph, and you guys came down on Ricky a little bit. Why don't you give the guy a break? He's obviously taking some lessons. He's doing a great job every week now, but now you're turning on him, or you're turning on him, you're turning on Lee Diffie, and you don't want to see Lee Diffie on the show anymore either. Look, think about this, okay? This isn't so much about you guys complaining about who the announcer is. Think about how difficult it is to call a supercross race. This is not like any other sport, not golf, bowling, not motocross, not NASCAR, nothing else. Because there's all the time in the world to talk about everything that's happening in the world while cars are going around in NASCAR at 200 miles an hour. They're talking about the speed, they're talking about who changed tires, they're talking about Richard Petty. And other than soccer, and even that, they're talking about something in between them kicking that ball over that field. There's always time to talk about something, not so in Supercross. From when that gate drops till that checkered flag, there's action all over that track. Even when the guy is in, let's just say somebody gets a bad start, a really good rider. He starts off and he's in 18th place. He's picking his way through the pack. He's only got a couple of minutes to get to the front. They're talking about that. They're talking about the guy in first. They're talking about all kinds of different things. It's not so easy to come up to fill that airspace, much like I'm doing here tonight. I'm talking a million miles a minute, but it's not so easy to fill up that kind of airspace or not say anything during a Supercross race. So I think you guys really ought to cut the Ricky and Lee Diffie and who was ever doing the announcing. You need to cut them some slack a little bit and think about how difficult that job really is, okay? I'd like to see your comments on what I had to say because, well, that's just how I see it. Yeah, we're doing that right now. Motocross history. This week in Motocross history is brought to you by Racer X magazine. It's available on your newsstand now and, of course, online. Racer X. Don't forget to share an ad in the back of every issue. What happened this week in Motocross history? Back in 1969, a gentleman named Michael Craig was born. Who's Michael Craig? Michael Craig, he would go on to become a factory Yamaha rider, later a longtime Honda of Troy rider. Craig won the 1994 Tampa 250 Supercross, becoming the first rider that season to beat the incumbent champion, Jeremy McGrath. It was his one day of where he did a great thing on a bike. I mean, I'm talking about Michael Craig. It was his only win in his professional career. But he is also the father of Christian Craig. Okay, Christian Craig, who just last week at Oakland won the 250 main. So I thought it's very interesting that a father and son both have Supercross victories. There's only one other father and son team in the history of Supercross that have both won a main event. Who are they? No, that's not trivia. I don't have anything to give away, but can you guess who it is? Whole Shot Hansen and Little Hanny. Those are the other two, the only other father and son team. 1977, the Golden Boy, Brock Glover, Galen Mosier, and Ron Turner topped the $2,000 AMC Motocross at Saddleback Park. It was Brock's first official ride as a Yamaha factory rider. By the end of the season, he would dethrone his teammate, Bob Hurricane Hanna, as the AMA 125cc national champion, the first of Brock's 6 AMA motocross titles, 7 if you count the old Trans Am series. Golden Boy. I was hanging out with him Saturday night at Oakland Supercross. A lot of fun. Always good seeing Brock Glover. 1979, Tomahawk goes green. What does that mean? Talking about Tommy Croft. He was on a Kawasaki that year. The thriving CMC Golden State Series, a 7-race, $24,000 series, opened at Saddleback Park with plenty of factory stars to make it more than just even a national had seen in recent times. It was just a Southern California gathering, but it turned out to be huge. All the major factory teams were there, and they were represented, but none was represented better than Kawasaki. They had Jam and Jimmy Weiner, a newcomer named Jeff Ward, topped the 250 and 125 class, respectively, while Yamaha's Rocket Rex Staten took the 500cc win over the newly Kawasaki-signed Tommy Croft. Anyway, there were some other guys there that you might recognize. Honda's Gary Semick, Danny Magoo Chandler, and Brian Myerscough, and my old friend Steve Bauer. Good guy, Steve Bauer. He was also racing there that day. He finished 7th in the star-packed 250 class. And that's what happened in MX history, 69, 77, and 1979. Bill's Pipes. You got to get hold of Bill's Pipes. I'll tell you, he makes a beautiful pipe for a more modern bike, but they do go back quite a few years. So get a hold of them. The best place to look for Bill's Pipes is really on Facebook. They're easy to communicate with on Facebook. The phone numbers are there, the emails are there, but I notice that they respond right away. So if you're interested in one of those really, really cool pipes that Bill's makes, get a hold of them. Bill's Pipes on Facebook. As I mentioned at the opening of the show, our condolences go out to the friends and family of Preston Petty, who passed away Sunday in Dallas, Texas. Preston Petty, a legendary name in the motocross industry, a wonderful gentleman. I was so proud to be able to do a little interview with him. In fact, I am willing to bet it was the last recorded interview there ever was with Preston Petty. I did it at the Trailblazers on August 29th. It was a Saturday, and he and his former wife, the lovely Mary Petty, were leaving on Monday to move Preston to Texas. So if you want to see the interview, go over to Vintage Motocross Radio, and you'll be able to see the interview with Preston Petty and I at the Trailblazers last August. Again, our condolences to the Petty family. And speaking of Vintage Motocross Radio and interviews, you can go over and listen to all the interviews I've ever done at Vintage Motocross Radio. And they're on there from Brad Lackey to Rodney Smith to Garrett Wolsink to Dave Arnold and so many more. Billy West, Sue Fish, Mary McGee. And 'tis the season. 'Tis the season to get back into doing some interviews, and coming up in the beginning of February, this is confirmed, I will have Flying Brian Myerscough on Vintage Motocross Radio. Stay tuned for that. I'll give you the exact date. Brian is recovering from a recent back surgery. We wish him well, but Brian Myerscough will be on Vintage Motocross Radio in the very, very near future. The 2022 AHRMA Northwest racing schedule is up. Go over to their Facebook page or look them up online at AHRMA.com. You can find out about all the regional races that they have. And, you know what you can do too? If you have a club that has some events coming up, send them to me. Send them to me here at Vintage Motocross Q&A, and I'll announce them. There's also a really good page on Facebook now that does nothing but list all the events that are coming up. So get a hold of me with your events, and I'll put them here on the show. I'll also make sure they get on that USA Vintage Motocross events page that is on Facebook. And there's another event coming up that I've been talking about for months. I am so excited about it. It happens this weekend. I leave shortly for the lovely state of New Jersey. And when I get there, I'll be packing it up with my buddy Rich Fasala. We'll be going out to York, Pennsylvania. The York Swap Meet is this Sunday. And that is happening at the York Fairgrounds. That goes from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. They're sold out. They're sold out, so you can't get a table to sell, but you know what that means? If you got a couple of bucks, you want to get out there and see all your friends at the York Swap Meet. 350 or 370 tables. There's a bike show. The bike corral is still have some space in it if you want to sell a complete bike. So get out there and see us at the York Swap Meet. Looking forward to the PVR Potomac Vintage Riders Banquet, too. I'll be doing some speaking there on Saturday night. I'll be with my buddy Paul Stainard. I understand the Pettin boys are going to be there. We're looking forward to a good time in York, Pennsylvania this weekend. We're down to the finish line. This week, Northwest Mako CZ has a special going on for you Mako guys, whether it's for your 68 all the way through 1979 Mako. They have fork stops for just $10.95. Get over to Northwest Mako CZ, check him out online. He's got so many different products over there, but this week he's got a great special, fork stops for your Mako. Vintage Motocross t-shirts and hoodies are still available. They're just $19.99. They come in gray and white. For a couple of bucks more, you can get yourself a hoodie to keep yourself warm. Vintage Motocross Q&A apparel. Get some, get a picture of yourself. We'll be happy to put it here on the show. Vintage Motocross Q&A sponsorship opportunities are still available, and we're working on some new things for the show in the new year. If you think you have a product that you'd like to see here on Vintage Motocross Q&A, get me an email. I will send you a sponsorship proposal package. You'll be seeing all the results that all of our other sponsors are seeing up here, okay? It's not as much as you think, and you could be reaching 20,000 people a week at least. So get a hold of us. We would love to have you as a sponsor on the show. Well, I am Joe Abadi, and that wraps it up for this week's edition of Vintage Motocross Q&A. I want to thank you all for watching the show. Jordan, Chelsea, Susie, and looking forward to packing it up and heading out to York. I'll see if I can get him. Chino! Wouldn't you let him jump up by himself? All right, Chino got a good grooming. He's here tonight. Rocco, he's being a little difficult. Anyway, thanks for watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll see you soon. I'll be reporting from York live on Sunday. Check us out. Till next time.